back to Mr. Seifert's question.
Yes.
I've been listening to the ESP album again. Your bass had the most incredible sound on that album. Do you remember what mic they were using, or did you have an amp?
Oh, stupid.
How are you, Stephen?
Oh my God, we just saw him.
Isn't that cool?
Mute your mics, please, if you're not asking a question.
The first part, I'll answer the second part first.
Okay.
I've never used an amp. I'm using the upright bass in the studio. And I only used an amp when I was making records when I had the electric bass before they figured out how to record it without an amp in the room. When they had bass players, uprights, double on Fender bass, we all went out and bought a big fat amp. And then we borrowed a Fender bass from somebody because they were all gone by the time we needed to have one. So answer your second part first. I've never used an amplifier to record the upright bass. Never.
Wow.
The first question, now, I seldom pay attention to the microphone that the engineer has. They all bring their own to the studio. Jim Anderson brings his own. Rudy Van Gelder, of course, had an array of his own microphones, and he would never tell me what it was, even if I asked. So I don't know what microphone I had. I do know that the bass sounded great that day, and I took credit for part of that for my hands.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Wow.
So, Stephen, if a guy tells you he can only record you with an amplifier, he's new to the business of how to record the bass.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Marshall Zucker wants to know, are you in contact with Richard Davis?
I talked to him maybe 6 months ago on his birthday, or however long ago that was. He's living near Madison. He's maybe 90 years old now. He sounded really great. He's in the facility where he's resting comfortably on a good basis. He's got care, people taking care of him, and sounded great on the telephone when I talked with him. He knew where I was. We talked about old times in his basement, the bass violin choir. He looks great. He's got a full hair of gray head. And it's just wonderful. Yes, I like you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. Because when I first started listening to the great music, first I do remember that the review of when both of you played with two of the bass players in the Charles Bell quartet, bass quartet. And I also remember there was one really wonderful interview with both of you in Downbeat magazine. I remember that very fondly. It's got to be, I don't know how many 50 years ago, but I'm always happy. And when I first started listening to the great music, both you and Richard Davis were two great bass players. So thank you. Power to both of you.
You're welcome, and stay well.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. One more reminder, Mr. Luca Rulli, Mr. Bildoring, if you could please mute your sound. We do have sound coming in on top of Maestro and other people asking questions.
No.
Sorry. Yes, I listen very well.
Okay, could you please mute?
Mute. Here, I think maybe I.
So because I'm not expert, I don't know.
That's okay. I just did it.
That's okay. Penny took care of it. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Trevor Kinsel. Wow, that's an interesting question. What do you do if you're asked to play a tune that you don't know? Is there a tune that you don't know?
Maybe three, and I learned one of those last week. It depends. We need to get into some kind of dangerous territory here, but I'll put my foot in the water and see how dangerous it gets. A lot of people who write songs don't really know how to write songs. And because I do know how to write songs and have taught composing class and stuff, I know how songs can work, and I accept when it doesn't work the way I know it. Having said that, unless I'm assuming original composition, the person didn't say if it was one of his tunes or a standard song. If it's a 32-bar song, by the second chorus, I'll know it. If it's a standard format. If he had done an arrangement of All the Things You Are and the B major with his own changes. I may not get the notes he wants, but I'll make the tune work. Having said that, I think it's not a good idea to make the guy or gal who's playing a tune that they don't know try to play it at your insistence. So please don't do that to me again.
Audrey Hall asks, what comes first, the groove or the melody?
They're not separate. They're kind of inseparable. I mean, you can make any groove work with any melody depending on your skill level and how well you know the changes that go with that melody. I think your groove is such a personal thing to play and to define. The difficulty with jazz music is that they never got a quantified language when everyone agrees that a phrase means what it does. So we kind of stuck with hoping the other person can interpret your language skills to describe this music or what he or she wants with it, and have you be successful with their contribution despite not knowing your language skill to define what you really want from the music.
So you think that it's you can't separate the two run hand in hand?
No, if you know the melody and have skill, you can make any rhythm, any groove work with the melody. It comes to judgment. The good taste, poor taste, is it messing up the intent of the song? You know, I mean, we all have heard the hotel gigs where the guy played All the Things You Are as a real fast bossa nova, you know, and Now's the Time is a real slow ballad. I mean, okay, that's how you feel about it. I'm not sure that your interpretation of the tune as you hear it was the intent of the composer of that piece. You have to trust your judgment and your maturity and your comfort zone with your skill level to be comfortable to play All the Things You Are in 3/4, you know, and feel comfortable that that's your view, which is what it is. But the melody and the groove, they're inseparable. It's a matter of good judgment and good taste.
Great answer. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Bruce Richardson asks, can you talk about Creed Taylor's role as a producer? Did he involve himself much in the aesthetic choices, combine the ensembles, etc.?
There's about 9 questions. I try to answer them, the top 3 of them. Questions. Creed would always meet with the band leader, whoever he was or she was, and they would decide on the library, the songs. And whoever the leader was, unless he had a personal favorite on the instrument, if he wanted to hear maybe a Herbie rather than Bob James, or whoever his personal piano player preference was, I'm sure they ran those decisions by Creed. I was never a part of those discussions, so I don't know about the inner workings other than when they got together in the studio, Creed and Freddie Hubbard, or Creed and George Benson, or Creed and whoever the band leader was, had agreed that we'll meet at Rudy Van Gelder's at a certain time on a certain day with this personnel and this arranger. That was all done before I got there. And I trusted that those guys were there because they had agreed to whatever Creed's process was, whatever it was. I do know that they discussed the library, personnel, arrangers. I know they discussed that. And out of this discussion came an agreement on what these things would add up to. I'm more than comfortably assured that if I was the bass player of choice for the date, those CTI dates, if I wasn't available, those dates didn't take place until I was available.
Okay. Shane A says, thank you for doing this. And I do okay at walking 300 beats per minute if the drummer is playing pretty straight ahead. But if they start doing some Tony Williams stuff, I struggle. Any tips on playing with those sorts of drummers up tempo, since you are the undisputed master at this?
Let me get my metronome together. Hold on a minute. It's not far away. I'll be back on Wednesday. Time flies. Okay, I got my metronome here. And while it only goes up to 208 beats per minute, I can't imagine you playing 328 beats per minute.
300, it says in the.
300. Well, thanks.
Uh,
Well, that's a ballad for you. Okay, 300. Okay. And this is 208 beats per minute. I cannot imagine someone playing 100 beats faster than this. So I think the first thing if you could do is look at your metronome and give me a more accurate number of beats, BPM. We can probably work this conversation out. I just kind of, I'm not sure dumbfounded is the word or amazed that someone can do this. I'm sure someone that I'm looking at now has probably tried to do 308 beats per minute. Congratulations, and I'm sure that the bass was on fire when you stopped. Just take a look at your metronome again and get back to us before we get off the air.
yeah, Shane, if you put your, get that answer in again, I'll watch the chat and make sure.
Okay, please do that.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Brenda Seiler, when you performed at the DC Jazz Fest last September, you were using a borrowed bass. How do you make a decision to use your own versus a borrowed bass?
It depends on the transportation. Well, it depends on the transportation, depends on the routing we have. It depends on how we're getting there. If we're flying, then my bass is a problem because they won't let me take it on the airplane. So we call bass du jour, which is the bass of the day. I've this morning, interesting commentary. This morning I was deciding if I want to continue doing that. Do I want to continue going to California without my bass, or Europe, or Japan, and all the inconveniences that it makes for me that's convenient for the promoter? I'm not sure how I feel about that. I know certain bass players stopped traveling because they got tired of playing a strange bass when they left their house, basically.
Right.
And I admired that decision. I didn't question it. I didn't ask them why. I didn't say, "Do you really mean that?" I said, "Are you going to change your mind?" None of those questions. I understood the thought that goes behind that really, really serious commitment. I can't have my bass. I'm not making the gig. That's a lot of spirit. And I encourage those thoughts. I'm not sure that that's the right thing for you to do. I understand that. My decision is based on a lot of factors. Can I drive to the gig? Am I going by train? Does someone help me move the bass from point A to point B? I try to make sure all those things are in place, and I try to have my bass as often as I can because people are paying me to do what I do. And I don't want them to get in the way of me being able to fulfill my commitment, not just to the audience who's paying to see me, or you who are paying me to do what I do, whatever it is, but me as the guy who does whatever that is. I want a chance to do that. And without my bass, clearly I'm limited as to what choices I have based on the condition and the bass I have.
Right.
What kind of strings do I have? Is it bigger than mine? Is it smaller than mine? Is it not as good as mine? All those factors determine my performance level. And I'm always amazed that I come out of those performances when I'm not using my bass, comfortable that I did the best I could with what I had to work with. And since people can't hear what I'm hearing, I can't get away with the stuff that I would not normally get away with because the bass doesn't allow me to do what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, those factors are the results of me doing the bass du jour, or my bass at the Blue Note in New York, or the Smoke in New York, or any New York club. And you come to those clubs, you will hear the bass that's on the 2,200 records, counting, something like that. Yeah, some of those records. You plan to hear that. I want to give it to you. It's a little difficult without my bass. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Maestro. And also thank you for letting me use that quote in my Roberta Flack article.
Thank you. Well, she's a great lady. And I'm always amazed that she came to New York and just took New York by storm because of her talent level and her presentation. Bravo for her.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael Grigsby asks about the Skyline the trio album, the Grammy-winning trio album you did with Jack DeJohnette and Gonzalo Rubalcaba. What was the process? Do you have informal rehearsals, or is it all on the spot? Do you exchange charts? How did that work?
My memory, and that wasn't seems it was only yesterday, but it was quite some time ago. We went at the studio for the first time, I think. We exchanged musics and we did it right then. I can't remember having any rehearsal. We all have our own tunes. We bought our lead sheets and sketches and stuff like that. But I can't remember us having a rehearsal for that. I think one of the amazing things was that this trio had never played in a combination like that before. I thought the results were really quite well recorded. A good studio, a good engineer. Again, Jack's cymbals just always amazed me with the clarity of them. Gonzalo's ability to start a rhythm and go wherever we help him get there, or not allow him to get there, as the case may be.
Well,
He
can I speak? Can I ask a question, follow up to that?
Well, I'm still in the middle of the paragraph. If you wait a minute, yes. Those guys are professionals, and their egos at their homes, but their minds in the studio with these other two guys, and that makes the music really wonderful. And the result is that enough people like it that it got a Grammy. Yes.
Okay, so the value of listening and how does one increase the ability to listen when you're in the moment of playing with people you've not played with, playing music you've not played with? How do you increase, as a player, the quality of your listening?
Grow up. I think I tell my students when they ask that kind of question, when you got a new gig or guys you don't know and the library is different, leave your ego at home, bring a spare set of ears.
Mm-hmm.
Information is all around you, from the drums. I assume you're a bass player, from the drums, from the piano or keyboard that they call it these days, that's the horns, the arrangements. You have a lot of help in making a gig like that. And there's no reason for you to feel uncomfortable because you're in a strange environment. There's a lot of help going with you, in addition to your own personal contribution. And I think the only way to expand your work area, who's going to call you, it depends on how willing are you to put your thing aside and make sure that you are doing what the guys need so they sound good. I'm really good at that, man. And I enjoy doing it every day. Somehow my thing has survived those moments. And I thank the guy up there who's allowing this to happen on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Chip asks, what was your first pickup and when did you get it?
My first pick was Barker's Berry, who are no longer in business, and Rudy Van Gelder and I thought it was the best recorded sound with the pickup they had used so far. I'd used them for about 8 or 9 years before someone else bought them, I think a vacuum cleaner company, and they stopped making the pickups. Boots Mallison, who was my bass player, and when we do the big band and the nonette, he still has one that sounds great, and it's a nice thing to use. And Wes was the guy's first name in Long Beach. I went to the factory a couple of times and saw them assemble it and watched them put together and put in the bridge, and it was just a wonderful thing to watch this thing take place. Marcus Berry, Les Barkus and somebody Berry. Once the company got sold, the new company stopped making the pickups and stopped developing them, and along came other makers who saw that there's another industry that they could get involved with, and how they could certainly have more bass players have a chance to be heard with the new amplifiers that were coming out and get better recordings.
Yeah, Ron, this is Chip. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Chip. Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much. Yeah, I also saw the interview in Downbeat a million years ago, and also heard the bass choir several times. But yeah, thanks for your question, because it was that stick-on, it was the Barkus Berry stick-on pickup, I think, was the first one I had it too. Thank you for telling me that.
And they have also, they came up with their own preamp. And
That's right.
I would go to the New York studios and have the guy go inside the box and figure out how to rewire it so I could use their cable, studio cable, Maxell cable, so it was a better fit than the one that the Barks Berry was using at the time.
Right on.
And the
Right
guys,
on.
the guys would love to see me because they know I had pretty decent gear, and I was bringing the sound to I was bringing my sound to the date. I wasn't bringing an amplified sound.
Right on, man. I loved your sound with that Barkus. I just loved it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Hicks, you need to stop sharing your screen.
Please.
Everybody can see your screen.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And when I see your screen, I can't see the chat or questions. Or
okay. I'm sorry. Is that okay now?
No, it's getting in the way of everybody.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm using.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
I'm using my. I'm using my iPhone for the first time. Sorry.
Okay. Please mute when you have a moment. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
You bet. I'm sorry.
Okay. Chris Carrera says, how did you keep your mental and physical health in top condition on or off the bass for so long while staying away from bad influences?
Well,
They can't see me.
it's not a complicated question, but it's a kind of a personal answer. I never did drugs. I used to have one drink a year for my birthday or a major event.
They can't see me.
I just thought that one way
They can't see me.
would be to have
They me right there. They can't see me.
all my facilities available to me. And I didn't see guys who were into the drug scene as good examples of being able to do that and get smashed, whether on drugs or alcohol. I think the second thing was, at some point, I thought I could be a pretty decent athlete. I played good baseball. I played a freshman year of basketball in college. And I knew I couldn't do those things and practice all day and make the classical gigs, which I was doing at school. So clearly, I couldn't continue the basketball career, as short as it was, on a real serious basis. And they had summer playgrounds, so I would just go on the playground and play for some. That was enough for me. Thirdly, I managed to always eat correctly. Even when there was no food, I wouldn't buy something else just because I wouldn't go to Burger King. Sorry, guys. Or Mac's, Big Mac, no, Little Mac. Yeah, I never did those kinds of things. I knew they couldn't last me for the day. I tried to do after the gig is go to bed at night, get up in the morning, have a decent breakfast because that may be the first meal of the day. And I still do it. Right now that I'm healing, my habit has been at 5 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in New York, working or not, I'm up for the trainer and I'm doing these routines 25, 27, 30 years or so. And I'm returning to that concept as my hiatus has been ended, and I'm back on the bass and tying my own shoelaces and little things like that I couldn't do before, and brush my own teeth. I get up by myself, answer the doorbell, and let the trainer in at 5:05, and we do our thing from 5:05 to 6:15, 3 days a week. That helps me do what I try to do. No secret there, guys.
Alan Lewine asks about your work with Eric Dolphy. I'd like to hear about your experiences with Eric Dolphy and your reasons for walking back from the avant-garde more into the mainstream.
Eric and I only had performances on record dates. I never had any gigs with him. With someone else, Richard Davis or Abdul Malik, other guys, including Mingus. So my relationship musically was limited to the records we made, which we had a great time making. Once he joined Mingus, they had a plan already. And of course, Charles was the bass player in those bands. So my experience with Eric was limited to the recording sessions and a social life we both had, because I was trying to get real busy, as he deservedly so became a very important figure and person on the jazz scene. He was a really intense player. He always practiced. He always had his flute nearby or his piccolo nearby, and he would find some way to get in some notes when no one was looking, or he had some time when he'd go outside after the date or an intermission. Panamanian in the background.
Excuse me, Maestro.
Everybody must mute themselves.
Okay, even if you're on a phone call, ladies and gentlemen, and we cannot see your screen, we can hear you.
We hear somebody typing.
We hear the
somebody's
phone
music
call.
just came on, so please mute your microphone.
To 712-266-6747, you're interrupting the Zoom with Maestro Ron Carter. Please mute your phone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And continue. Sorry about that.
No. Does that answer your Dorothy question?
Mr. Lewine, does that answer your question?
Mostly, Maestro. I was wondering about your interest. Most of your recordings under your name have been very straightforward. The stuff with Eric and some of the stuff with Miles was very kind of out. Do you feel like you preferred to walk back, so to speak, into a more mainstream mold?
No, I just thought that I could be more effective with different kind of plan those guys had. The Sun Ra band, the guys in Chicago, the Art Ensemble in Chicago. I love what those guys did. I like listening to Seb Boulette and the guy from Buffalo who played with Ahmad Jamal for a while, or William Parker. I love those guys. Now I made records with guys who played that style. Don Ellis, for example, or some early Jackie Bayard. I just decided that that's not what I was hearing, and I enjoyed playing what I was hearing. And those guys love what I was hearing because they would come by and say hello and listen to the set. We talking about music and basses. No, I don't feel like I walked back. I just found something that I could really do and make me a part of the scene that I want to be a part of.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you,
welcome.
Maestro.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Oh, yeah, I see you.
Seth Greenstein asks about your work with Jim Hall. Can you talk about what you heard in his playing and what made playing with him so exceptional?
I love Jim Hall. He would make the arrangements at his house in downtown, and I would see them at the gig for the first time, and my job was to make those arrangements logical, to make them work. One of the things I enjoyed about Jim Hall, who used to pick, she didn't hear the pick. And I don't quite understand how that's possible. As many guys that I see who have that pick use sound, he had his own sound with the pick, and it was just amazing that he did that. His harmonic sense was really unusual. He played some great solos, and he never asked me why I played that note. He understood that I thought at the time that was the best note, and I wasn't going to back up from that note. And he kind of understood that I was committed, as I was to his choice. And I listened to those dual records we made in the 60s, in the 70s. I'm just pleased that on record, literally on record, are these two guys who made great music together with a minimum amount of rehearsal, a lot of love, and a real high skill.
Okay. Do you have any memories of the session Fuchsia Swing Song with Sam Rivers?
That's
Can
one
you say something about the way you listened to each other with Tony Williams?
All I can say about that series was that this is a time when avant-garde was really hot in New York. And Sam Rivers had a place called Riv B where they had the all-night sessions with all the avant-garde players who couldn't find anywhere other than that place to practice what they were trying to figure out. While Sam had the skill to be an out player, however we finally defined the word out, he was really an inside player with a lot of skill. And he had the felt tip, like Jackie Bayard. They could do a Bird thing, or they could do Charlie Parker thing, or they could do Albert and Don Eiler kind of concept. Sam had that skill, and if he cut him on a certain night, he would play like those guys. But he was, again, Sam was a very inside player as opposed to the guys who just did the outside stuff. I don't know other words for those music, and I don't mean that derogatorily. I just haven't got a good skill level to define the clear difference between Albert Eiler and Sam Rivers. It's really great, their approach to the music. I know Sam played changes. He played melodies. He played the same melody night in and night out because he wanted to develop that melody. He wasn't looking for necessarily a new effect to make this sound of this ballad or this particular tune more valuable. Having said that, he was playing with a couple of guys who were into developing a different kind of harmonic rhythm, a different kind of physical rhythm, a different kind of input to the soloist that he was used to playing with. And for him, it was an experience to play with us guys, a terrible grammar, with us guys, as it was him to play with Sonny Murray or those guys who are really into the avant sound, the bass player from the Chicago avant-garde band, or somebody like Raphael Garrett, one of the outside bass player from Chicago. Really wonderful bass players, but they were playing what they wanted to play because that sound was part of their environment. Sam enjoyed playing with me because while I had done that, I wasn't doing it right now with him.
Sawyer England is a freshman at the University of Michigan studying jazz and improv with Robert Hurst.
Yay!
And he wants to know, how do I get the most out of his jazz education?
Play as often as possible, with as many people as possible, and don't think you're there yet.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. That's simple. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer. Relax, you have time.
Thank you.
Could you tell us something about the creation of black nylon strings? Why, when, and who?
Let's go backwards. Who is Attila Zola, one of the guitarists from Hungary, who came to New York during one of the migration things from the east to the west, and me. I had met Attila. We'd done some gigs around town, and he was telling me he was trying to invent some new strings. So my big answer was, okay, which wasn't enough for him. He said, will you help me? So my big answer was, okay. He made several samples, and when he played them for me, I'd say, nope, not yet. I said, Attila, no. This went on for 4 or 5 months, and he finally put a combination of strings together using Labella's facility to assemble the strings. And he came up with this formula of a steel core with nylon wrapping, with a silk wrapping, and around that was the black plastic wrapping around the strings. And that seemed to me, of all the combinations he had put together, the most viable for the sound I could work with. And finally, he found a better grade of the silk wrapping around the wire core. And they weren't so stiff, they weren't so tough to play. They didn't take long to break in. They had a high pitch before, but they melted out as you played them, depending on how often you played them. To make them bow work, you had to find the right rosin and the right kind of string hair composition, the bow hair composition. Once you found that combination, the strings work full time. And I've been using them since about almost 30 years now. And I've tried other sets to see what they do, and I don't come away feeling that this is an adequate replacement for the black nylon strings. I love those strings. They sound good, sound like me, I sound like them.
We have a lot of variations on the same question. So, and that is, what is your favorite of something, of a musician, of a record, of anything? And I know what your answer to that is, regardless of what the specific thing is. So, okay. Maestro?
Okay, well, right now, my favorite thing is doing these subscriber things once a month. My favorite things. Da, 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 da. Okay, that's a different kind of thing. My next favorite thing is my favorite record, and I fell in love with my Bach Brandenburg number 3 version. Those of you who haven't heard it, shame on you. Just the title of the record, Brandenburg number 3, where I take Brandenburg number 3, arrange it for a string orchestra and solo bass. Please, if you haven't found it, it's on YouTube.
Yes, Ron Carter Bassist YouTube.
Or their tube, whoever owns it, yeah.
Your tube.
The tube, yeah. Brandenburg number 3. My favorite drink is orange juice with a lot of pulp. And my favorite musician is anyone who understands what the bass can do to make them sound better. I found 3 of those guys, by the way.
Okay. Ben Wendell is asking if you have any memories recording State of the Tenor with Joe Henderson and Al Foster.
No, we had rehearsals because Joe knows so many tunes, as do I and Al. We had to go to rehearsal and figure out what tunes we work on, what tunes we could make work best with no piano. Of course, my view was that I can make them all work without no piano. I'm supposed to think like that because that's what I'm doing right now. Al said, well, Ron, whatever you say is okay. I said, thank you, Al. So Joe, that's 2 against 1. Let's go to work. We planned a library. Joe came in every night on fire and left on fire. The record is the title of State of the Tenor. Alfred Lyons called it the State of the Bass, and I wasn't going to argue with him. Joe Henry was and just incredible playing. I'm listening to some of those things because I'm doing another book. It'll be called Ron Carter Drops, and some of the samples of my bass lines are taken from one of the volume 1 or volume 2 of Joe Henderson, The Sound of the Tenor, State of the Tenor, recorded at British Vanguard with Al Foster on drums. Nice records.
Thank you, Maestro.
You're welcome.
Nick Keprin asks, do you have any stories or memories about M. Tume?
I never knew him well. I knew his dad, of course, Jimmy Heath. And I met him occasionally, but I had no relationship with him other than knowing who he was and what he did for a living. But no, I have no recollection of knowing him at all.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. If possible, I had another quick follow-up question, which I would be very interested to hear your perspective on regarding that same era, Mtume and Miles at that time. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Michael Henderson's playing with Miles, specifically 73 to 75, when it was really rocking.
Well, he didn't play like I played to start off because he was doing electric bass with that sound.
Right.
One of the reasons, just to go back in your calendar, when Miles' band was starting to go their own individual ways, and Miles said I should join his band playing electric bass, I said, Miles, I spent a very long time trying to figure out how this sucker works. Broad terms. And I was starting to understand the power of the upright bass. And I don't mean power in terms of volume, because pickups are really getting made. They're really getting bigger right now. Mm-hmm. But the effect on the band that a bass player can have if he has the tools, the wherewithal, and environment to do what he thinks he can do to change the band's direction, for example. I didn't think the kind of bass lines he was asking me to be responsible for with the electric band interested me. I interested to listen to how guys could do that. I've always been amazed at bands. James Brown band, he had a bass player on a record, he had the same bass thing live. You know, I did a show with James Brown when he had a big hit called It's a Man's World, and the string section. I made 3 gigs with him at the Latin Casino in New Jersey, on the Turnpike, basically. And so he wanted me to play the same line from the record that I made with the strings. I said, Mr. Brown, do you really want that? So, oh yeah, my bass players all do that. I said, okay. So I gave him the same line for 2 shows. And it killed me because I was hearing other things. But he's paying the bill.
Yeah.
So I said, Mr. Brown, you need to come to my gig and see how I do what I do with the same bass line. You know, I'm waiting for one night to come in and he would play we would do footprints. I mean, I own that sucker, you know. I've done many things with it, you know. I want to see what the choices are for me as a bass player. We never got that far in our relationship, but he knew where I'm at. He understood I was a professional enough to give him what he needed to make his stuff work.
Yeah. So he never came to the gig.
No, wait. To
Sorry.
back up to your question, I'd listen to all those guys just to see how much work they put in to find the groove that they could play all night. You know, and he was one of those guys. Of course, Bernard White. You know, I could name Victor Wooten. There's a lot of great players who managed to find the correct line to sustain themselves. The bass player all night with these big records. You know, Miles had a big tune with the all blues, right? But after the first three choruses, I'm not doing it. Doog. I did that already. Tomorrow night we got something different, guys. So bring your pencil and your blackboard and see how this works. You know, if it doesn't work, don't play. I'll get the message. Having said that, I admired all those guys. You know, all those guys who came through that mix. They really played some great lines, and they were able to sustain that impetus again and again and again with those kind of lines. So my hat's off. I'm not wearing a hat. My hat's off to all those guys.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Carter.
Prem.
Daryl Jones, by the way, played some great bass lines.
Who was it?
Daryl Jones.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
James Jamerson.
Great
lines.
Of course.
Prem Rocio, I hope I said that correctly. Do you have any insights you could share about composition?
I think composition is kind of a broad word, but in terms of the current generation, I really haven't heard any real nice compositions. So I think most of those people who call themselves writers never studied composition. And I'm not so sure that your feelings, and I say that word advisedly, I'm not sure your feelings are enough to make a composition that you wrote substantial enough so that someone can play them when you're not standing next to them to help them, or they're worthwhile with someone else recording them when you're not there at all. That's kind of the standard I kind of start to judge a good composition. Would I want to play this kind of piece? Does it offer me enough information as it is on this sheet to understand what this guy wants someone else to do when he's not there? And I'm not sure that the young generation they seem to have set aside the learning aspect of how to compose. And what little I've heard, I haven't heard any compositions that were based on the composition standards I'm used to hearing. I'm sure they're there somewhere, just haven't heard them. Okay.
Nico Smith is a guitarist at the University of Michigan. He's asking how best to develop and explore what your sound is on your instrument.
For me, it's a matter of changing strings till I found a string that responded. That's what I wanted. That had the longevity of life that I didn't need to change every 2 weeks. 3, one who stayed in tune when I first put the string on, and 4 who let me sound like I thought I wanted to sound. It can be expensive. Strings for bass that cost $200 a set or so. Guitar players have a lot cheaper way, I think. I used to have a way of having a set of strings that weren't so expensive as the bass sets were, so it's a little more complicated financially for a bass player to be able to buy a set and change them every 6 months, depending on how often they work and how their hands hold up, whether the bass likes the strings. All those factors are part of what develops, what allows you, plural, to find a sound that, as I say, that you're responsible for, and that will come out of you when you play the bass out of the case every night. I have that, and I like that. I try different strings every now and then, and they don't knock me out, so I don't fool with them anymore. Next question.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Shane.
You're welcome.
Okay, Shane is one that had the 300 beats per minute. And he just said, I double checked with my metronome. Most of the tracks on 4 and more are around 300 beats per minute. Are you doing maybe metric or some other?
I can't imagine.
It can't be 300 beats.
No.
It's quarter note equals 300 BPM. So the bass notes will be going this fast. Not the metronome. If you were thinking of it in a halftime to the BPM of the bass line, maybe. But yeah, it's quarter note equals 300 BPM.
Well, I'm not. I don't want to take. I want to take up everybody's time trying to figure this out, because I do know 2 and 2 is 4 everywhere in the world, Japan included, and the West Indies. It's still 2, and I'm not. Nolan, I got this metronome here. Ladies and gentlemen, pardon us for a minute. This is the 208. This is quarter note, right? Can you hear me, Nolan?
It's Shane.
Yeah, I'm talking to Nolan right now. I'm looking at him.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is 208. This is a quarter note. I don't know, 300, that's going to be twice as fast, man. And I'm not sure that I've ever played that fast free in my life. I mean, we go. And I'm sure 4 more, either you got a different kind of record player, a turntable, but I'm sure that's not, it can't be 308, man. I don't know how I help you explain that.
And in that case, the metronome would be at 150. And I think you meant this.
Is that it? Close enough?
That's exactly what I meant. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm just trying to get, I want to answer your question as best I can. And having said that, what record is that from? Form Up from the Lincoln Center thing?
That's right. Yeah.
I can't imagine us playing that tune that fast. Then, you know, we've been formed the band, and we were just learning our way basically. That's 64, I think, or something like that. Okay, now that I got the right time, can you give me a question again? I'll try to answer it now that I understand what the beat is.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Carter. I just have a hard time playing along with that record, not because of the speed, but because of what Tony Williams is playing. And I'm just wondering how you kept up with him at those speeds.
No. Shane, right?
Yes.
You got the wrong view. How did Tony Williams keep up with me? That's the question. Because I'm playing this. And I'm not giving it up, although we're getting the same money. I'm still doing this. And I'm almost daring him to do it. Can we talk frankly here?
Yes.
Tony, do your shit, but this is what we're talking about. I'm not giving this up, man. You got to find something to do that makes this work. I found something that works. Bridge, give me attention. Come on, Tony. This is it. And Tony would tell you that he could only do what he did because I'm playing bass with him. Having said that, I wasn't distracted by what he did because I hear the beat in my head. And I'm appreciating this information from Tony. That's not against my beat. It's somewhere within what I'm playing, these quarter notes he's found. So I would think he was having an enjoyable time listening to my quarter notes, literally banging him in the head and not giving up until he says, "Uncle," if you know that expression, you know? And I was actually, because he was only 18, he couldn't go into the bars without me because he was underage in New York. He'd be 21 to go into the bars, you know? And if I wasn't going in, he couldn't go in. So I had him twice. I was older than he was, so I could give him the bars to the gig. And I'm playing these quarter notes. And I wasn't giving up. I eat that stuff up back when I was 22, 23. That's my lunch, man. I wasn't giving that shit up, brother. Get over here. Come on. You get the napkins, I get the lunch tray. We got this.
That's my lunch.
Hey, I had some dessert for him too. A great big half note on the bridge.
Okay, I think we
Great
have time
answer.
for
Thank you.
one more
Okay.
question, and then we have a little announcement request. Tom Favara, you had your hand up for a while. What's your
Oh, no,
question?
I just wanted to say thank you for everything, and I was going to ask a favorite question. So, hey,
Oh.
Ron, thank you for this, by the way.
You're welcome.
Oh,
Yeah.
pocket square.
Yeah.
Check. One pocket at a time.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I hope you enjoy those ties.
I do, thank you. And then one of them got into the documentary, I heard.
Nice. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
P.S.
You
I
have to
got,
see
I got,
it.
I got a documentary out called Ron Carter Finding the Right Notes.
PBS. Watch it now. Full length
Or
feature documentary.
Amazon, you can buy the document on Amazon. Really nice 2 hours of why I do what I do as best I can all the time.
And Maestro, maybe you want to, hide your ears for a second. We have something to.
Oh, yes, then we have an announcement.
Okay,
right.
I'll leave for a minute.
Right.
Just hide.
Right.
Go ahead,
So some of you may have heard and may have already helped us. We would like to get Maestro nominated for a Kennedy Center Award for this year, or a Lifetime Artistic Achievement. So Simone, could you put that link in the chat?
Yeah, I put it
please?
in and I'll put it in again. And it's
Okay.
at the top of the roncarterjazz.com website. And you just click on it and it will walk you through, okay?
Each step of it takes a minute. It really just takes a minute.
Literally a minute, not a
right.
minute as in an extended
Right.
period of time. And if you would all be so kind as to forward it on to anyone who's also
Yes.
aware of the Ron Carter universe of Planet Elegance and what he's done for 60 some years, giving love to the world, that would be a wonderful thing.
Because apparently they get tons of the more submissions we can make, the better our
I
chances.
just say, this is not because of me, but I've written letters for this in the past. I wrote it the year that Benny Carter received it. I did it for years for Dave Brubeck. I'd like to think I did in Lionel Hampton's year and Sonny Rollins, and it actually could work. We know that they have not given to a jazz musician, I think, since Herbie Hancock. I think that we all would agree that Mr. Carter would be the greatest choice possible. And I really think that we could do it. We could do it. Let's do it.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Much appreciated in advance. And I know a lot of people have already, and that means a lot. And also I forward all of those wonderful emails you send. I send them to Maestro, and
He gets everything.
he gets
sees
everything. He
He
appreciates
sits with
it.
us for everything. We go through every social media platform, everything he is involved with. He does everything himself. He really appreciates deeply the connection. Maestro, are you hiding around the corner?
You still around, Maestro?
Yeah. Oh, look who showed up.
Yeah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey there.
Sorry you weren't here earlier. You missed a really good conversation.
Yeah, one of my favorite things, yes.
Okay, well, there may be a question or two we didn't get to. If you email your questions to roncarterbassist@gmail.com, we will get everybody an answer. And we'll be doing this again soon, so you also can ask in person again. You'll get the email when that happens.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
See you,
Have a
Ron.
great day,
Thank you, Ron.
everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ron.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for Chip, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sei gesund.
Very much, Mr. Carter. Thank you.